Bremer, and I'm here to present a very special award to a very special family. The Columbia Chamber of Commerce each year presents the Agriculturalist Award to a deserving Boone County farm family. This year, the Chamber's Agriculturalist Award goes to Dr. Rob and Nancy Foss. Rob and Nancy are the owners of Equine Medical Services. Let's go back a little and look at the Fosses' early years. Rob grew up in Memphis, Missouri. He graduated from Iowa State University and started a small farm raising beef cattle and hogs. Later, he operated a grain elevator and feed mill. Rob had an uncle who was an equine veterinarian, and Rob knew from the time he was in the 7th grade that he wanted to be a vet.
Well, I grew up in Memphis, Missouri, which is up in the northeast part of the state. My parents raised hogs and a few cows and ran a grain elevator and feed store. Of course, grew up with animals and decided that the horses were more fun to play with than the hogs. When we moved back to Columbia, I worked at Rolling Hills Veterinary Hospital. It was a mixed practice, and worked there to grow the equine practice. Finally, in 1986, we purchased the equine portion of the practice. Started Equine Medical Services, and worked out of our house and garage for a couple of years before we moved here. Well, we moved after we got married. We went on a honeymoon, which consisted of one night in Kansas City, and then we went to look for some place to live in Ames. Did an internship there at Iowa State in 1981 and 82, which kind of helped solidify the things that I learned in vet school. And from then, we moved back to Columbia.
Nancy grew up in Columbia and is a 6th-generation Boone County resident. She developed her business skills watching her father, Ralph Gordon, who founded the company that became Boone Central Title Company. Nancy serves as the business manager of the facility. Nancy and Rob met when Rob became Nancy's chemistry tutor in college.
David Gordon moved here from Kentucky in the 1820s, and he came here and settled in the Pop Collins cabin, which is now at Stevens Park here in Columbia. And then he wintered here, and then he sent back for the rest of the family, and then they built what was known as Gordon Manor. And then there was another brother, his sons, one built our farm that our family came from out east of town on WW, and then another brother built a Terra house that's Terra Apartments is in now on Ashland Gravel Road. So there were several brothers. So anyway, that's my long family history. Primarily the business aspect of it. I'm interested in all the biological workings of it too, but my dad was a businessman and started his own company, Central Missouri Abstract and Title, which is now Boone Central Title. And my brother is a developer in South Florida and North Carolina, and apartments and apartment complexes and shopping centers and such. So that's what interests me, is the business aspect. So I'm fine. I'm tucked in the back. I do the books. I do taxes. I watch the bottom line, and that's what kind of interests me.
Rob graduated from the University of Missouri Veterinary School in 1981. Equine Medical Services was started in 1986. It was operated out of the Foss's house and garage for 2 years and moved to the present location in 1988.
Yeah, we started out our business with a $5,000 loan from Boone County National Bank, so they've always been there when we needed it. And I was thinking this morning, my dad called us the first year we were out here, I guess, and said, "Do you have enough money to pay your property tax?" I didn't know. Maybe. Well, then it came, and it was $3,000.
It was a big bite.
It was a big deal to us. So he lent us that money, and I've always be grateful for that. And we paid him back in the spring when the money came back in. But between the bank and then my dad, that was a big boost. And Rob not having any student loans helped quite a bit too. He trained horses through veterinary school, and that paid for most of his college, for all of his college.
Yeah, I graduated from veterinary school. I didn't own anything, but I didn't owe anything. We started, of course, working out of our house, and had no barn, no surgery facility, anything to work with. And as the practice grew, we saw that it was possible to build a clinic. And so 2 years after we started the practice, we moved to the Deer Park area and built a clinic with an office and a surgery room, and the first barn had 6 stalls in it. And at that point, we thought if we ever filled those 6 stalls, we'd be really busy. And we were. But things have changed since then. Of course, now there's 92 stalls. We were concerned that we could have enough business for one veterinarian, and now we've got 5 plus of part-time that tend to be very busy.
We have the veterinarians, and then we have a management staff. We've got Becky's up front, and then and she takes care of the front office. So everybody knows her, and then under her she's got a receptionist. We have a barn manager, Patty, and then and she takes care of all the employees in the barn, gets the employees the barn help, and we have Jared Thornhill, who's our farm manager, because we have outlying farms, so he has to maintain the farms, haul the horses back and forth, the mares when they're ready to leave, and he's got several people that work under him, and then we have Kelly, who's in charge of the recipient mares.
The reproductive management,
Yeah.
the recipient mares.
Kelly Gordon.
So there are quite a few college students that work here part-time, and of course there are quite a few full-time employees also, but we have a regular parade of college students that work here for 6 months to 4 or 5 years part-time. A lot of kids that learn how to back a tractor and manure spreader. They've never done things like that.
At the start, the Fosses thought the main focus of the business would be medicine and surgery. Now, reproductive services are a major part of the business.
We initially envisioned the practice as strictly medical surgical, and if we expanded to the degree we are now, we expect it to be surgically oriented. In fact, it's taken on a more reproductive orientation. Over half of the practice is involved in reproduction, especially embryo transfer. And that happened partially largely as what the market needed. As I got out into practice, I found that the reproduction was had a big hole in it as far as service to horse owners, and also found it very interesting. And so as my interest grew and capabilities in reproduction grew, the practice grew. A large part of our practice is embryo transfer, and the reason that's valuable to horse owners, there are several reasons. And horses are presented for embryo transfer if they want to get multiple foals from a mare in a year, particularly if the mare is very valuable, and hopefully the foals will be equally as valuable. Also, it's used to produce foals from mares that are in performance training or showing actively. And then, of course, it's used for mares that have reproductive problems that can't carry a foal of their own to term. So we receive mares from throughout the country, predominantly the eastern 2/3 of the country, brought here to produce embryos and transfer them so they can have these multiple babies. Also, about half of the embryos that we transfer actually are flown in themselves. So the mares will produce the embryos wherever they're located, and the veterinarian will recover the embryo and fly it to us, and we'll put it in a surrogate or recipient mare.
A tour of the business includes the laboratory where much of the reproductive work takes place. Computers are used to store information, and microscopes are used to watch the procedure with needles and pipettes that are used to hold the egg and the sperm. The procedure is very interesting. About half of the embryos are flown in from all over the country. The embryos that are shipped are flushed and then cooled to refrigerator temperature and must be implanted within 24 hours. Some are flushed locally. Now, horse owners like to have their horses foal early so they will have larger animals for shows. They want them to foal when the weather is nice. In order to do this, one has to create an artificial day length to get the mares to ovulate. This involves putting lights in the pastures, creating a ball field type of atmosphere. Some of the embryos are shipped in from southern states, So this artificial day length has to be created here for the mares to be in the same stage of their cycle as the mares in the other states. This process has to start 60 days before the mares are bred. Around Columbia, that process starts in December. The procedure involves coordinating ovulation of both the donor mare and the recipient. It requires a lot of coordination. Horses have to be ultrasounded daily to determine when they are ready. 7 days after ovulation, embryos are flushed. They are implanted into a mare that is in the same stage of her cycle. The procedure that is used is non-surgical. Before this was developed, the embryos had to be surgically implanted, making the procedure harder on the animals.
For competition purposes, especially horse owners and economics demand that foals be born early in the year. And to do this, we have to stimulate mares to come in to reproductive cycles early in the year by increasing their apparent day length. We do this by putting them under lights, extending their day length into the evening so that they're under lights up until about 10 or 10:30 at night. Both the donor mares and recipient mares need to be under this lighting to have them ready to go early in the year.
Dr. Foss said that the success rate for the embryos that are flown in is about 75 to 80%, and the rate for fresh eggs is 80 to 85%. After the embryos are implanted in the surrogate mares, the mares can either stay at the Equine Medical Services facility or can be taken back to the client's farm. Once the mare reaches 30 days gestation, the client leases her until foaling.
Our business has changed a lot over the years. And in fact, a large portion of what we do now, what I do on a day-to-day basis, wasn't done when I was in veterinary school. Between the embryo transfer, freezing of semen, arthroscopy that we do on horses, a lot of the procedures that we do were not done, or at least were in experimental stage at that point. I think the first commercial embryo transfer was performed in the United States in 1982. And I think we started our first embryo attempts in 1984. But to keep up, we do several things. Basically, I try to learn a new procedure, a new technique at least every year during the winter when things are slow. Attend several meetings of organizations over the year. Read a lot of journals. I've talked to other veterinarians. My new obsession, learning, is to learn. It's called Intracytoplasmic sperm injection, ICSI for short. And it's a technique used in human medicine and in research, where a single spermatozoa is injected into an egg to fertilize it. Horses in particular require large numbers of sperm to establish a pregnancy. Generally, you inseminate about 1 billion cells. For stallions that are dead, and so have very limited sperm frozen, it's very valuable would be valuable to be able to produce pregnancies from small numbers of sperm. And of course, with ICSI, a single sperm can be used. So far, we're the first, as far as I know, this is the only private practice in the U.S. to establish pregnancies with ICSI, and hope to be using it commercially in the future.
The Equine Medical Service is a big business for Boone County. In 2006, around 500 embryos were transplanted. The business owns around 700 mares. Of those, about 300 to 400 are in Boone County. The business has about 30 employees. There are 5 veterinarians associated with the business. The business has grown every year since it started.
We've had some years with 30% growth, and those are difficult. Managing growth. How do you have enough growth to keep things alive and keep things improving, but not so much that it stresses the overall system? And we haven't got that figured out yet.
And I see the growth of Columbia changing too, because they're moving out here. It used to be, when we built this in '88, it was quite a jaunt for clients to come out and pick up a tube of butte paste or something dewormer for their horse, and now we're just kind of on the beaten path. So Columbia's growing up around us, and that's okay, but it's very difficult for us now to find farms to keep these mares at. The land is not so valuable that we we need them close by so we can run up and pick them up and check them. And
Equine Medical Services is somewhat unique in the scope of practice that we offer here. We do surgery, medicine, advanced reproductive services. Dr. Foss has really stayed on the cutting edge when it comes to that aspect of the practice, and it's really, caused this practice to be what it is today as far as the growth that it's experienced. There are a lot of horses in Boone County and surrounding counties, but the growth of the company has greatly been influenced by how aggressively he's pursued the advanced reproductive side of the business.
Rob and Nancy have 2 children. Frank, 21, is a junior majoring in electrical engineering and computer science at the University of Missouri, and Kendall is 18 and a freshman at the University of Missouri majoring in pre-vet. The Fosses are in the process of adopting Skylar, 13, and Cameron, 11. Skylar and Cameron have been the Fosses' foster children for the last year and a half.
Working out of the home was great for several reasons. One time, of course, when we had our second child, Kendall.
oh,
Yeah, we had her as a Friday evening. You were back to work
Saturday night.
Saturday night. You were back to work on Monday. That was great.
I was answering the phone, and we had one client call and ask when are you gonna have that baby? She said, and I said, well, we had her Saturday night. And she said, and he made you come back to work so soon? I had to remind her that we were working out of the house, so it really was just down the hallway. It wasn't that bad. And I had a drawer, a big deep drawer on my desk, and I kept certain toys that Frank could only play with while I was on the phone. So it would
Shut him up.
it would make it look like we were conducting out of an office building rather than out of our home with a child crying or babbling in the background. So those were his telephone toys.
Dr. Foss is a member of a number of organizations and attends meetings to keep up on what is going on in his field. He occasionally makes presentations at these meetings. The organizations include American Veterinary Medical Association, American Association of Equine Practitioners, Missouri Veterinarian Medical Association, Society of Therogenealogy, and the International Embryo Transfer Society.
See in my computer case is Okie, stands for Orange Kitty, who we got as a mouser for outside in the barns, but he has found his way inside during the day. He decided to be curious this summer and loaded up with some of the horses leaving for Kentucky and ended up at a farm in Kentucky. And we got a call saying he was there, and luckily this is a good friend of ours, and he housed him. Tried to bring him back once, but Okie escaped. And
But he finally made it back about 2 months later.
yeah, and
Settled right back in.
yeah, he went right to his spot where he'd been. But our friend called the other day and said summer camp brochures are coming out if Okie wants to come back for summer camp. So. But he's a pretty good cat. Owning your own business really ties you down. I mean, it's fun, and you see people see the money go in, but I don't know that everybody sees the money that goes back out for microscopes and for trucks and for new tires and for the drugs that keep all the trucks stocked and the payroll and the payroll taxes and everything. So it's and the recipient mirrors is a big one too. So it's money in, money out, and a lot of time well spent. So.
The Fosses are members of Olivet Christian Church, and both Rob and Nancy have served on the church board.
They are just solid members of the congregation that pitch in and help with everything, constant in worship and other church activities. They also, both of them, have provided key leadership at certain points along the way. Rob has been a member of the board twice, and once during a very key time in all of its development, and he was really a source of strength and help for us all as we determined the direction for the future back in the early 90s. More recently, he was chair of our personnel committee and really helped us as our staff grew and we had to develop personnel policies and so forth. Rob was a key actor in that. And Rob is just one of those people that that you tend to rely on their judgment. He seems to figure out what's really going on here quicker than some of us. And so two fine people, but also very gifted people, generous with their skills and their time. And sure glad we have them here.
This is the first year that this has been given to an agribusiness like the Equine Medical Services that's owned by the Fosses. And again, it's thought that this is an important business in the ag community, but up until this year, it's always been given to a farm family.
But we've known Rob a long time, and we're so glad to be a small part of what they do down at Equine Medical, and we've appreciated our well, I can't say partnership, but our ability to work with them and what they do. Dr. Foss came to us several years ago, and he was expanding his operation with more recipient mares, and he needed some space. And at that time, our cow herd was getting kind of old, and we decided that we'd just take over and let him use some of our land to put these mares on. Well, at that time, he probably had 60 or 70 mares with us, and right now we've increased those numbers up to about 130. And this is where we put the mares here under lights, and they use this area then when the mares are ready for their recips to have embryos transferred. Dr. Foss will come here and do some of the transfer work on our farm.
The Chamber of Commerce Agribusiness Committee sponsors the Ag Recognition Dinner, and the 2007 one was the 48th annual one. In the summer, the Extension Council sponsors a Town and Country Dinner, and it's a way to get the business people out in the community, out in the farm community, to see a farm and learn a little more about agriculture. And the winter one, the Ag Recognition Dinner, the Chamber hosts the farm families, and so it's a way to try to give better communication between the ag community and the city community. Well, the Agriculturalist of the Year award started in 1993. Before that, we were giving awards like a beef award, a swine award, sheep award, conservationist one, and it was kind of decided that it'd be better to have one award called the Agriculturalist of the Year, and to do a video and make it a real special award for a family in the county.
The Columbia Chamber of Commerce is proud to present the 2007 Agriculturalist Award to Dr. Rob and Nancy Foss.
Appreciation, and I don't know if I can get in this box. It's wrapped very well. All that. There you go. But if you would like to say a few words, congratulations. And I'll get all this messed up with.
Well, thank you very much. It's kind of unnerving to sit through a video like that about yourself, and the only part of it is true. But thank you very much. We won't take very much of your time. I'd like to thank you for this honor. I'm not going to thank my kindergarten teacher and my football coach, although they were very good. But I would like to take the time to thank the Chamber for this honor. Nancy and I are very pleased to be part of both the agricultural and business communities here in Boone County. And it's wonderful to be recognized for that. Business ventures success often hinges on a lot of planning, a lot of hard work, a lot of time and capital. But sometimes it's more important to be in the right place at the right time. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than it is to be smart. And we fit in that category. We're very lucky to be here in Boone County, where there's just a unique mixture of country, of farm, of city, of community. And it's wonderful to be in a situation that allows growth like that. And it's great to be recognized for that. I guess I'd just like to thank you for this honor, and let everybody get home.
I may be a little prejudiced, but I think agriculture is still a big industry in the county. We don't have as many full-time farmers as we used to, but still have a lot of part-time farmers. We have some pretty big agribusinesses in the community, and of course the ag school at the university makes agriculture an important part of our county.